Studies have found up to 70% of breakdowns traced to the battery. These are not caused by wiring or anything else, but by the battery slowly killing every other part on your bike. But how exactly and why? Batteries rarely fail without a trail. The real problem? Riders think they're dumb components, but a dying battery whispers, it blinks, it swells, it cooks itself alive. And if you ignore those signals, the cost isn't just $80 for a new one. It's hundreds in fried electronics, days wasted chasing ghosts, or even a roadside breakdown miles from help. In this video, I'll show you 9 symptoms of a bad motorcycle battery, signals even seasoned riders overlook. And we'll go deep. I'll show you what to test, what it costs to ignore, and how each failure connects to the next. Stay tuned till the end because one of these symptoms can actually turn into a fire risk if not fixed. Symptom 1. Slow cranking in the morning. On a cool morning, the starter turns lazy and the engine rolls over like it's in syrup. The headlight dips, the dash looks dull, and the motor catches late or not at all. It might sound normal after a ride, but first start of the day is where a weak battery shows itself. You hear the speed of the crank fall off a little more each try. What's changing under the seat is simple. The plates can't deliver enough cold cranking amps. Sulfation and age raise internal resistance, so voltage sags the moment the starter pulls big current. The ECU sees the drop, the fuel pump primes weak, and the ignition has less spark energy right when the mix is hardest to light. A good battery buffers all of that. A tired one collapses. If you cook it with repeated slow cranks, you're buying a replacement for $80 to $150. Keep pushing and you stress the starter too, but the first hit is the battery itself. A fast check can keep you from trouble. So after sitting overnight, resting voltage should be higher than 12.6 volts. If it's down near 12.2 volts before you even touch the button, you're living on borrowed volts. But skip the charge and the problem turns into a no start that wastes time and money while you chase ghosts. Symptom 2. Click click, no start. You press the starter and get a rapid clicking from the relay. The lights dip, the dash flickers, and the engine doesn't turn at all. You try again and the clicks get faster, like a typewriter under the tank. Everything feels fine when the key first goes on, then it falls apart the second you demand real current. Inside the case, one cell is weak, or the whole pack has high internal resistance. Under load, the voltage collapses, the relay engages and drops out, engages and drops out, because the battery can't hold the line. The starter never gets the amperage it needs, so nothing spins and the ECU browns out over and over. A quick test tells the truth. Watch battery voltage while cranking. If it drops below 9.6 volts, the battery is done no matter what the charger said last night. Right now, it's costing you parts and stress. Every long, hopeless crank attempt overheats the relay at $20 to $60 and cooks the starter windings at $150 to $400, while you still end up buying a new battery for $80 to $100. $150. That kind of electrical limp turns into lighting problems next, where visibility and safety disappear with no clear cause. Symptom 3. Dim or pulsing lights at idle. At stoplights, the headlight pulses with the beat of the engine. Signals flash out of rhythm. The dash fades, then brightens when you blip the throttle. Night riding feels sketchy because the beam shortens and widens like a breathing flashlight. The weak battery can't act as a stable reservoir, so any ripple from the charging system shows up on your lights and instruments. When RPM falls, alternator output is low. A healthy battery bridges that gap. A tired one lets the whole bus voltage swing, so every lamp and controller rides a small roller coaster. If you want a number, bring the engine to about 3,000 RPM and read the battery. You should see a steady 13.5 to 14.5 volts. If it's wobbling low and the lights breathe, the battery can't buffer. This is the petty cash drain that adds up. Fresh bulbs and even a visibility ticket or two are $20 to $60, and you'll still be in the dark if you don't address the battery. And worse, it can bring the electronic gremlins and the prices jump while you chase faults that voltage causes. Which brings us to the next symptom. Symptom 4. Random electronics resets. seconds. You thumb the starter and the clock zeros. Trip meters wipe clean. A BS or EFI lights blink and vanish. After the bike catches, the dash relives its boot sequence like you just installed it. Sometimes the fuel gauge goes blank until you cycle the key again. One simple way to catch it: measure voltage drop during crank. If it nosedives under 9.6 volts and the dash clears, the battery's the culprit, not the ECU. Those resets aren't magic, they're brownouts. The battery sags during the heavy draw of cranking, the ECU and dash drop below their minimum voltage, and modules reboot mid-start. Sensors feed weird values for a moment. The fuel injection stumbles, and the bike logs faults that are really just low voltage events. This is where the parts cannon starts firing, replacing sensors, swapping pumps, hunting bad grounds. You can burn $300 to $800 in a weekend without ever touching the real problem. And if these resets don't trigger a fix, the bike starts cutting out in traffic, stalling at stops, and the next bill includes a tow. If these tips are saving you money already, hit subscribe now so you don't miss the next fixes. And tell us in the comments below, do you do your own repairs or not? Symptom 5. Engine dying or difficulty starting. This is the tow truck symptom. $100 plus for the ride and a wasted day. But your dash might actually warn you just before this happens. When you first start the bike, everything feels fine. Your bike fires up strong and rides fine for a while. But once you're 10 or 20 minutes into the ride, you pull up to a red light and suddenly the engine stumbles, then stalls. You restart it, but the cranking sounds slower. A few more tries and the starter just clicks. The ride ends at a stoplight, not your destination. The root cause? At idle, your charging system barely produces enough voltage. If your regulator isn't feeding power back into the battery, it's slowly draining as you ride. When the voltage gets too low, the fuel pump can't maintain pressure and spark becomes unreliable. The ECU needs stable voltage to control ignition and fuel delivery, but with an empty battery, it begins cutting out, sometimes mid-ride. This problem often fools riders into thinking it's a fuel issue or spark plug problem. But what's really happening is that the entire electrical system is starved of power. You can test this by checking battery voltage right after a ride. It should still read over 12.5 volts with the engine off. Anything lower means your charging system isn't doing its job. If you're not careful, this problem will leave you stranded, especially if you're far from home or riding late at night. Once the battery voltage dips below 11 volts, even bump starting becomes impossible on fuel-injected bikes. Do not ignore this sign. If you've noticed flickering lights or weird electrical behavior earlier, this symptom could be your final warning before complete failure. Symptom 6. Swollen case and bad smell. You park your bike after a ride, pop the seat to check something, and you catch a sharp, sulfur-like odor, something between burnt wires and rotten eggs. Then you glance at the battery and it looks off. The casing is swollen, bulging slightly like it's under pressure. Now, if you fail to see this simple symptom, then expect to see the bill start with a new battery. That is $80 to $150, and an acid cleanup, which could be around $50 to $200. That bloated appearance isn't cosmetic. It's a sign the battery has been overheating from overcharging or deep discharge cycling. As internal temperatures rise, the battery vents hydrogen sulfide, a corrosive gas that's both smelly and dangerous. Left unchecked, the case can crack, spilling acid onto nearby parts and triggering rust, shorts, or even fires. When a battery reaches this point, it's already damaged internally. One or more cells are gassed out or warped, and continued riding only increases the chance of a full rupture or electrical system fault. This isn't rare. I've seen riders ignore a bloated battery because the bike still starts, but a week later, they're replacing corroded frame grounds or chasing phantom shorts through the harness. But the things that cause you your next spending might be hidden in your cables and connectors. Symptom 7. Green/white corrosion on terminals. After some wet rides or a humid garage session, your bike suddenly won't start. You open the side panel and find the battery terminals crusted over with white powder or green gunk. In some cases, the connector ends look melted, or the wires near them feel soft or discolored. That's corrosion. Acid vapors escaping from the battery, especially during overcharge or heat soak, react with with humidity and oxygen to attack copper and tin. The result is oxidation that raises resistance across those contacts. Higher resistance means more heat, and that can lead to melted terminals, browned wires, or even popped fuses. Even if your bike still runs, corroded terminals cause voltage drops that confuse the ECU and weaken the starter circuit. This is especially true after rain or washing, when moisture makes the resistance spike even more. It's a cascading failure. Bad connections lead to low voltage. Low voltage leads to misfires or dash errors, and all of it makes the battery work harder until it fails to. This is cheap to fix right now. New terminals or short pigtails are $10 to $40. Ignore it and you invite wiring repair in the $200 to $600 range when the heat cooks insulation and the voltage drop burns contacts. But preventing this is simple. A quick cleaning with contact cleaner, a wire brush, and dielectric grease can restore a solid electrical path. But delay too long and you'll be looking at harness repairs or burned connectors. Or even worse, you could pay for performance you can't feel, because even with clean plugs, a weak battery drags the whole system down under load. Symptom 8. Won't hold charge overnight. You ride home, park with a full battery, and everything seems fine. But the next morning, the bike struggles to start, or doesn't crank at all. You throw it on a trickle charger, and it charges back up. But the next morning, the same thing happens. You'll buy another battery for $80 to $150, and if a small draw is the culprit, expect $50 to $200 in parts and time to chase and fix the leaky path. However, this pattern often points to one of two things: an internal battery fault like a bad cell causing self-discharge, or a parasitic draw somewhere in the system slowly draining power overnight. In either case, the battery is unable to hold its charge for even a single day without assistance. The toll this takes is more than just inconvenience. Daily charger dependency makes your battery age faster, and if there's an ongoing drain, like a stuck relay or faulty accessory, you're also risking deeper electrical issues. Plus, the constant voltage dips mess with the ECU's ability to store learned values or manage idle settings. Testing for parasitic draw is easy with a multimeter, and checking for overnight voltage drops can confirm battery health. But too often, riders just keep charging, ignoring the root cause until the bike strands them. Now, finally, let me tell you how and why you could be wasting money on parts while power keeps dropping under load. Symptom 9. Sluggish acceleration and misfires under load. Twist the throttle and something feels off. The bike responds slowly, hesitates for a moment, or misfires under load, especially if the lights or radiator fan just kicked on. The engine doesn't rev cleanly, and full throttle feels like half. What's happening is voltage instability under load. At low RPM or high demand, the electrical system can't maintain stable voltage. The fuel pump's pressure dips. The ignition coils can't generate a strong spark. The ECU receives skewed sensor readings and makes poor fueling decisions. All of this adds up to a ride that feels gutless and inconsistent. Most riders don't connect this to the battery or charging system. They chase fuel problems, swap coils, change plugs, clean throttle bodies, often replacing parts that are perfectly fine. But until voltage is stable, those fixes won't work. This is where wallets get light fast. You'll buy parts that don't fix it. Coils for $60 to $200, pumps for $150 to $400, and if you're really unlucky, an ECU for $600 to $1,200, when the only real villain was low voltage under load. This symptom is subtle but costly. Poor power delivery reduces enjoyment, creates stress, and leads to misdiagnosis. And when those misfires get worse, they can cause unburnt fuel to foul plugs or clog the exhaust catalyst. We've just gone through all the symptoms that can quietly ruin your battery and your wallet. But there's one thing riders often miss: the battery isn't always the villain. That's why the next thing you need to know is this: the 9 symptoms of a bad motorcycle clutch. So hit like, subscribe, and watch our next video about bad clutch symptoms.